Good afternoon, Fred. It's great to have you here today. And just for our folks that are watching, this is Fred Witteveen from Children Believe. He's the CEO. And Fred, give us just a bit of an overview of yourself and Children Believe, and then we'll jump into some questions together.
Thanks, David. Before I got into international development, I was a pastor in Jane and Finch for over 15 years. And then we made the transition, my family and I, to work overseas with two organizations in Kenya, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And then in 2020, the opportunity opened up for me to come to Children Believe, which had just rebranded
Mm,
from Christian Children's Fund of Canada. And I was quite excited about the rebrand and actually interviewed just before COVID was declared a global pandemic. I
right.
remember being here, and then a couple of days later, and then was offered the role and came back to Canada during hard lockdown.
Yes,
Uh,
indeed.
And so, for those of you who may not know very much about Children Believe used to be Christian Children's Fund of Canada. It's a 60-year-old organization, part of the Child Fund Alliance, which is a global alliance at 11 different countries. Children Believe works in seven countries in Asia, Africa, and Central South America. We focus on breaking barriers to transform the lives of children.
Mm,
So that they can live and dream fearlessly with a special focus on education. And we're also have been a traditional child sponsorship organization and are transitioning from that to other ways of raising funds to improve the lives of children in some of the world's most vulnerable places.
yeah.
So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. Thank you, Fred. That's a great lead into our topic of conversation today, which is change and uncertainty. You know, we can call it adaptive resilience if we want to give it a sort of a title, but certainly leading through organizational change and sectoral change. I'm sure you're seeing that as well. When you think of a couple of examples, maybe one or two examples of since you've joined Children Believe, where you've had to adapt and consider transformational change. The name change was significant. Sure, going through the pandemic was as well. But you're also talking about transitioning out of child sponsorship as well. So those are all pretty significant, even on their own. So maybe one or two examples of where you're facing change.
Just listening to you, these changes happened all alongside each other.
Yeah,
Uh, Traditionally, Children Believe is a child sponsorship organization, over 80% of our funding at that time, and doing development work. And then all of a sudden, you're in a global pandemic requiring us to pivot into humanitarian programming, which we had not done before
hmm.
in any significant way. Um, and then at the same time, child sponsorship, which has been a great way for us to connect with Canadians who want to
Sure.
support children, but that really has, as a product, appealed to an aging group of Canadians,
Mhm.
and younger Canadians give differently, and so recognizing that we needed to diversify our revenue while still taking care of the donors we have. And at the same time, with the new name, reintroducing us to the Canadians. And we actually rebranded during COVID. It wasn't planned that way, it
Right.
just turned out that way. And um, that was hard. That
Yeah.
was very hard. And then the other aspect from an organizational perspective of the impact of COVID is that as a leader, I didn't see my staff essentially for the first 2 years.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I had to lead virtually,
Yeah.
with a few occasions where I got to meet my staff. First couple of years, our board meetings are all virtual. And for me, that was hard because I was used to engaging with people in the office, engaging the field, and all of a sudden the things that were I considered my strengths, I had to figure out how do I get to know the people I'm working with, the board
Mm.
that I serve, in a virtual world. Um, and then, the gradual transition to hybrid work.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, but so the challenge of change, when you're thrust into change, is to recognize the opportunities they provide.
Yeah.
Uh, and actually, when you have multiple sets of changes, it actually increases the opportunities if you have the eyes and courage to do it. So
Yeah.
we were able to accelerate the shift from child sponsorship to a willingness to diversify funding. Still ongoing, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think the current moment we're in is even accelerating it even further,
Yeah.
as we figure out how do we connect with Canadians in a new way. How do we build our brand in an environment where the news is dominated by one single news story,
Yeah.
in many different ways. Um, and our work overseas is now challenged yet again because of the impact of the closure of USAID. While we're not directly funded by USAID, the ripple effects are significant. So so it's not just multiple changes; it's like a wave and then another wave, and that's requiring us to be open,
Mm.
to be able to try things, to make sure we know where we're going,
Sure.
and really finding new ways of working, both on the program side of what we're doing and on the fundraising side of what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. I mean, those are all pretty significant changes, as you say, especially coming one wave and then another wave coming after it. That's obviously had to have some impact on your culture as an organization. I'm just wondering how you've been able to adapt culture-wise within Children Believe for the team.
One of the things I learned a long time ago, that when you're going through change, that while we're in a remote world, I need to visit my country offices. While we learned to work very efficiently like this, the way we're interacting, you and I right now, you need moments of getting together.
Yeah,
And to build relationship, for people to really understand who you are, what's really important to you. Because one of the challenges of this remote kind of work is, especially people, staff abroad, the leaders get blown up,
mm,
and they need to see you as very real, very human, very humble, and that you're with them.
yeah,
Uh, so for the culture, it's creating opportunities to come together in a virtual way. We do many more town halls than we've ever done.
mm,
Um, I just had a global leadership team meeting, and I had, rather than us do a lot of talking as senior leadership, I said, "What are your questions about the CEO report that's going to the board?"
mm.
And I said, and then we're going to go into breakout groups. That's the lovely thing of technology. And I said, I have two questions. Well, first, no, three. One, celebrate one win. You got to celebrate a lot of wins when you're going through change,
Yeah,
because people often feel like they're not measuring up. And I said, you know what? This is a long road. You need to celebrate every single win. I just said this yesterday.
mm,
And then I said, celebrate one win. And everyone got a chance to do it because everybody likes to celebrate.
sure.
And then I had them go into two questions. Question one: what are the external challenges you're currently facing? We needed to hear from them because we not just for senior leadership, we needed staff to hear, directors to hear from each other, that they're in the same boat. And I needed them to go into that. Plus, it helps me, and I'm going to share this with our board, what I heard. And then the second question was, despite the challenges, what are the opportunities you see?
Yeah,
So you really got to keep the glass half full as opposed to half empty. You got to be able to stare challenge in the face, but at the same time, you need to really work at, uh, what are the opportunities here. The other thing we've learned is, boy, you got to break down silos quickly in order to
right.
manage this. And we continuously work on that. The rate at which we're challenging our internal ways of working has accelerated. And that's critical because the old ways of working last a long time. So you really do need to look deep within the organization to really dismantle old ways of working.
Yeah,
And creating ways for staff to think about new ways of doing things. It helps when you're less reliant on sponsorship, because
yeah,
sponsorship creates its own culture, and you kind of have to slowly shift that. It takes time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, that's an interesting segue into just sort of financial resilience too, right? You're shifting from one style of program that has brought in a certain kind of revenue, and now shifting to other, presumably multiple
Yes.
streams of revenue. How has that affected the organization as you've transformed over the last few years?
It creates more nervousness.
Hmm.
Uh, Sponsorship, predictable.
Right. Yeah.
It's like as a linear equation. You knock on this many doors, you get this many at last. I mean, it's very straightforward.
Yeah. Sure.
When you diversify into new revenue streams, it's not. You have to try new things. You have to be willing to fail. You've got to be able to pivot quickly. You need a much more of a learning culture. Sponsorship is more of working from a script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and we have to be able to step back, reflect, make changes, and you have to work across teams really, really well. It's making us work in new ways. You know, the I'm not a fundraiser by background, but the language is integrated multi-channel,
Yes. Right. There you go.
which I really like. Uh, and and everybody needs to be involved in the relationship building process.
Yeah.
Everyone has a role to play, and that culture will take time.
Yeah.
Uh, um,
Sure.
it's and you have to hire the right people who've been there,
Yes.
know how to walk you there.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's a combination of of retooling the staff you have, who are hungry for the change,
Yeah.
and then bringing in that right mix of people who know how to walk with you there.
Yeah.
So we're retooling. The other critical change to our board's credit, they NGOs, INGOs are notorious for not investing enough in technology. And
Sure.
one of the early discoveries I made was how far behind we were on our IT investments.
Right.
And when I heard that how much pen and paper was still being used in our country, I was embarrassed.
Oh, well. Okay.
Was totally embarrassed.
Hmm.
And that what I thought was a simple question, you know, tell me what your burn rate is, took weeks. So we were able to we made the business case to our board to invest in an IT infrastructure change, and we're should be going live actually at the end of this month, next month.
Okay.
Which is a big change. It will increase our efficiency, make it easier for us to mine our data.
Yeah.
We have lots of data, but we don't always have the access to it. And so we should be able to make better decisions. So we're really excited about that. And I'm glad we did it in advance of everything we're going through right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Boy, you've talked about a number of things, celebrating the wins, being open to making mistakes and dealing with, quote unquote, the failure that may come from that, adapting to new technology, fundraising in a different way. What has this meant for you as the CEO? Just the simple fact that you're having to become a fundraiser whether you thought you were or not. There's that element just all by itself. But what other things have hit you as far as the CEO?
Well, I worked overseas for over 10 years.
Mm.
And one of the things I really enjoyed was the fundraising aspect.
Hmm.
So actually, I relished that when I got this role. That I wished I was doing more. COVID
Mm.
really made it hard to do the engaging with donors, and
Yeah.
and I love sitting down with a donor and telling them how their gift made a difference.
Yeah.
I love that part of the work. But you're right. The I come from more of a program background. And then coming back into Canada during COVID.
Yeah.
Anyways, the complexity of the way international development work is overseas has helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, Dealt with some pretty tough stuff.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I think having that ability to not be afraid of change, afraid of disruption, but rather learning to lean into it to find the opportunity. Because often in a market, the market gets very settled,
Yeah.
and each organization has its place in the market. And I've been in that position before, and it's like, oh, that's frustrating. How do I break out of where we are? It's nothing like a crisis a big crisis to upset everything.
Yeah.
And so the way I'm looking at this present moment is this is an opportunity for us, if we make the right moves, to shift our position within the market,
Yeah.
to raise our profile. We were just talking about it. I mean, a lot of organizations, particularly humanitarian organizations, are in real trouble right now overseas
Yeah.
because of the closure of USAID if they were very dependent. And so we're redoing our competitor mapping in all the countries we're in to see where are we now given what's just happened.
Hmm.
And I said, in some of the countries where we work, we're one of a handful of organizations that really have stood firm.
Yeah.
And when the government, local government sees you as reliable, and when donors see you as reliable and you're still in business,
Yeah.
that's not bad. So how can we do that here too? That we have resilience, we have we have sufficient reserves, we've got a strong governance. How can we leverage what we have to make the most of the present moment? Not that it's going to be easy.
No.
There are opportunities to be had if you have the right leaders around the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of gold in that. Thanks, Fred. We talked about at the early part of our conversation, change and uncertainty are kind of the standard these days for the charitable sector, not only in Canada, but certainly for the work overseas that you're talking about as well. One or two insights that you might share with another CEO or an emerging leader who might be looking to lead an organization that you've learned over the last 5 years that you think would be helpful for them?
Well, one insight is even if you are embracing of uncertainty, boards like less uncertainty.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So you really have to walk closely with your board
Mm-hmm.
because they will view risk differently
Sure.
often. So it's really important to communicate well your story and really listen well to how they see the uncertainty. So
Yeah,
you got to partner with your board through these uncertain moments
sure.
because they may read it differently. The role of a board is to manage fiduciary risk. So
Yeah.
you got to take care of that. The other insight is hire the best possible people
Mm-hmm.
who may be better at things than you are. I'm not the fundraiser. I need a really good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to get comfortable with people who are exceptionally more talented than you are in other things. Uh, and then you got to know how to help them play together, almost like a jazz quartet.
Yeah. Right.
You got to give them space. They got to be able to work with each other. They got to appreciate each other, and then that has to cascade down. But that leadership culture in your core chief group is really, really important.
Yeah.
And if that group can learn well together, you can do some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Great insights. Thank you, Fred. Thanks very much for your time today with us. This has been great, and we look forward to sharing this with other CEOs in the summit. So this will be great to share with them.